things work out. Just when I was about to take this down, because I haven't had any wind for a few days, the wind kicks up. Good timing. I got a fairly decent amount of smoke coming off right now, and it's just going out of my face, so like I'm sitting here comfortably. So this is a pretty good setup, really. I mean, I know it looks like crap right now, but this is 2 tarps that I'm going to be traveling with anyway, and the other one takes no extra construction. It's just laying it over the rope that's already going to be there, utilizing the bipod that's already here. So actually, so far, I don't think I need to close that gap. It would be kind of interesting to see what happens. All right, gap closed. Plenty of smoke still. So the smoke isn't blowing out quite as fast with this block here, but it's still not getting in my face. I think this is a pretty good system here. Just need to kind of refine it a little is all. So next I'm going to set up right over here in a more open area. I got some comments on the last video that gave me some ideas to try. One that I'm most interested in trying is angling my shelter perpendicular to the wind rather than create that effect that I described in the last video where it brings the smoke right into my face. I think I'll put this fire out and go give that a try. What I did is set this up with the wind coming basically from that direction near as I can tell, so that back corner is a little bit toward the wind, so this wall is not completely perpendicular. That was the idea. If I had a lot of sticks, it'd be cool to run one from there back to that back corner, but it's not necessary. So this is good. It's a far cry from perfect. It's not as good as what I just had over there with the whole 360 degree thing, but it's a far cry better from when I had my blizzard. I know it wasn't really one, but it's fun to call it that. So when I only had the tent up blocking from the wind, that was horrible. When I had the 360 degrees of wind block, that was really good. And now, as I'm basically perpendicular to the wind, it's definitely working. Probably can't tell in the video, but I dug this down about 8 inches, and then I put up my wind block of rocks. I started to just build it on this side, but that would have just created that same thing, so I went almost all the way around. What I'm thinking I should have done was a little wind tunnel underneath the rocks, kind of like a Dakota fire hole. When the wind is blowing, it seems to be functioning better. When the wind is still, it kind of robbed it of heat. But now the fire is more established and there's more coals, it's probably going to burn just fine. So there, the wind whipped it up a little bit, and it's really not bad. So far, so good. This is definitely functional. So I eventually figured out that pounding the dried meat prior to rehydrating it makes it rehydrate faster. So I did a video about 1.5 years ago drying some meat. I had a whole bunch to dry, and over the night I was thinking, you know, what if I build a scaffold and do it the old-fashioned way? So the next morning I decided to do that, and I made a video, and it's got quite a few views, and it's had a lot of good positive comments. And I don't get a lot of negative comments, but occasionally I do. And on that video one day, 2 or 3 guys jumped on and were talking about how terrible it was and how everything I did on that was wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it's a great example of why I like to do things and learn from experience rather than talking to experts like them. Because here it is 1.5 years later, and I'm eating it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I do believe that I can always do things better. At what point does it become wrong? I mean, the goal was to have dried meat that I could use in the future, and that's what I've got. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. I just delete those comments, not because I'm not open to criticism. I love criticism, but when it's just negativity, that's not what I'm looking to create. I'm looking to create a positive atmosphere where people can feel confident to try and to fail and to experiment, because that's how you learn. So when people just jump on and they know everything and they're negative, I just don't care to entertain that. Anyway, I'm going to start hydrating this, then I might go identify a few plants that are popping up. Barely out of February and we already got a lot of wildflowers showing their heads up through the dirt. It's pretty exciting. I love spring out here. It's beautiful up here with all the grass. It doesn't last long though, but I sure enjoy it when it's green. This one here, well, I think it's Lomatium gray or Pamphylian. I think they changed the name on it, but anyway, it's a Lomatium that's got a really strong smell to it. I think the young shoots are edible, and the roots are definitely edible and not difficult to eat. So I'm getting excited about those. This here is a really exciting one. Not only is it pretty, but I think this is the one. It's a Lomatium, and they only recently identified it as a unique species. So as far as I know, it still doesn't have a name because they realized it's distinct from the species that they had associated it with before. It's so incredible out here. Just yesterday there were elk right where we were walking a minute ago. I love it out here in spring. It's like Christmas, except that every day there's a surprise that you don't know what you're gonna get. Oh, I think that's chocolate tips or something like that. I always forget. Huh. Wonder why that guy's all wilted. Well, the wind hasn't taken it down. I'd like to say a couple things about gear. I don't have to go over all my gear every time, but just things that I change. So I'm always experimenting with a lot of things while I'm doing this, one of which is clothing. So my last trip was particularly cold for me. For this area, it was considered cold down at 12 degrees Fahrenheit, and I didn't use my coat. I wore this same clothes pretty much that I'm wearing now, and I had my wool overshirt, and I managed to stay warm enough. A lot of that's because these tents work for maintaining heat from the fire, so I have a way to stay warm, and then when I'm active, I stay warm. So by not wearing a coat, that coat probably weighs 3 pounds or something, 3 or 4 pounds, versus the shirt that probably weighs 1 pound. So that's nice to know. I'm always watching those temperatures of what I can get away with. And so today I'm not wearing a coat or my wool shirt, and I've been fine because it's getting up into 50 degrees, and it's supposed to be about right at freezing tonight. So that's not bad. So I got cold when it was 12 degrees and all I had was my sheepskins that I thought would keep me warm, like a buffalo skin would have. And so after that occasion, and I've been thinking it over a lot, just like a water filter isn't period correct, it's not a historical item, but I use it now because there's just some ways that I have to adapt. In the same way, I use these expensive, good quality saddle pads for my horses, even though they're not historically correct. I don't want to sacrifice my horse's comfort because of my hobby. Another thing I don't want to do is cut down entire sagebrush is what it would take in order to make my bed comfortable. From a distance, those sagebrushes look like there's a whole lot of foliage, but once you go in there and start cutting on them, you realize it's more of the whole bunch that makes it look fluffy, and it's not the individual branches. So I'd have to cut down like the equivalent of a whole sagebrush, and I hate to do that. If it was just a one-time thing, then sure. But when I'm doing this on a regular basis, or fir bows up in the woods, up in the mountains, I don't want to be doing that every day, particularly when I'm traveling. I suppose if I was camped, then you might get a few days out of it. I don't know how long they hold up. But I don't want to be cutting trees and sagebrush all the time. And so another, just like a water filter adapting to modern times and old historical ways, I've used these before, and I think these will be my go-to for my bed, where I fold out both of them. They're about 3/4 of an inch of wool felt, so they make a good bed. And then this here is my poncho, which is also a treated canvas. So I'm going to lay this down on the ground and then put these down, and I should have a good, warm, comfortable bed tonight once I get my dog out of the way. So I would much prefer to do the real bushcraft thing of cutting my own foliage and using it for a bed. I'll do it once in a while, like if I'm on a strictly historical camp. So that's the gear talk. Dinner was good, and I watched the woodland escape while it was cooking. That's a YouTuber. Got a pretty good fire going. This darn wind, it's chilly. Makes me wonder if I could have angled the shelter just a little more to block a little more wind. I got chilly. I got chilly earlier when I was hiking. Then I came back here. Took a while to get the fire actually big, but it hasn't been keeping me warm like it normally would. If there was no breeze, I'd probably be just dandy, but that breeze is really making it chilly. So hopefully it won't do so while I'm sleeping. I think I'll be tucked back far enough while I'm sleeping, but while I'm sitting here at the fire, I think I'm forward enough that I'm feeling it. So we'll see. Folks, I had a miserable night of sleep. It started by never fully warming up from my fire, trying to sleep off and on until 1:30, and then I did get a little bit warmed up, but it was cold. I woke up at 1:30 and started worrying about this little goat, because she'd been hanging out with the horses for a couple days, and the wildlife was pretty wild last night with the dogs barking. So I'm laying there worrying and thinking I need to go find her. So I headed off in the dark. Long story short, here came the horses and all the goats, and they followed me. We did a 3-mile walk roughly. It was kind of funny. The horses turned off at one point and the goats were in front of me. And after about a half a mile, the goats figured out that the horses weren't there, so they turned off. They had no idea where the horses were, but fortunately she came on home with me, and now she's back with me, and I know she's safe. So I feel better. I felt better walking. I warmed up my body, but the wind made my face frozen. So I sat in my cabin, no fire or nothing. It was still cold. I really considered just going to bed there, but I thought, no, I got to finish out the night. So I came back, wrapped up as best I could, and I still froze, and I might have slept 20 minutes. I laid there awake until I think 4:20 or 4:30, and that's when I usually wake up anyway. I'm a morning person, and since I normally wake up around that same time, I thought, you know what, I did it. I stayed the night out here. I'm gonna go back home. So I went back home thinking I'd fall right asleep. I didn't. I started a fire, had my coffee, and have been up all day. And I feel great. I had a fun time. I mean, it wasn't no regrets, but I do got to figure out what's going on. I don't know why I'm so dang cold. It was only probably high 20s or 30 degrees last night, and I've camped in those temperatures plenty. I had my thick wool pads below me and 3 layers of wool below me, and then 3 layers of wool over me. I had the blankets folded over, so I don't know why I'm having such cold nights, but I got to figure it out. I guess I probably should have put a bunch of that foliage under me, because I was warmer that first camp that I did a couple weeks ago. So anyway, these are camping exercises so I can get all this figured out, and I plan to do a whole lot of camping this year and next year and the year after that. So this is just fun figuring it out and getting it all situated on what I want my camping gear to be and what it takes. From me and the dogs, thanks for watching. If you want to share my videos, I appreciate that, and I appreciate all your comments. Feel free to share thoughts that you've got. From over here on the wild side, we're out.